What is up everyone, and welcome to an awesome little video that I've wanted to do for ages. This is basically a video where I'm going to showcase all of my Game Boy stuff in sort of moderate detail, show you guys around them, show you the games, and show you all the cases and the accessories that I have before I have to part ways with all of this stuff. Now, this is by no means my collection. This is all stuff that I've picked up on the cheap in a hope to make videos about, test out, clean up and resell, because I used to do a lot of that. But I'm recently getting back into it, as you've probably noticed on the channel, and I do really need the space. And even though they're portable consoles, as you can probably tell, all this Game Boy stuff does take up quite a bit of space. So in today's video I'm going to show you inside all of these cases, and it's quite amazing how many cases I actually have for all of these. It's quite cool that they're all cased up. It'll be very handy for sending them away and stuff. But anyway, I'm going to show you all these, show you the games and stuff, and I really hope you enjoy. Ooh, and to any Game Boy fans out there that have stumbled across this video randomly, unfortunately there's nothing that rare in this collection at all, and they're all pretty bog standard Game Boys and that, but even those these days are fetching a much better price than they were just a few years ago, because everyone seems to be getting into the retro gaming. So what I'm going to do, everyone, is I'm going to show you these one by one, starting with the most boring basic ones, working my way up to my favourite little bundle right at the end, which is this little guy. It's nothing amazing, but the fact that it's quite small and it packs a load of awesome stuff into here, I absolutely love it. Now, most of this is original Game Boy related, but I will show you some other bits and bobs. So I'd like to start off by showing you this hard plastic my organiser for pocket and colour. This is something that was quite common back in the day. I remember a lot of Game Boy Advance ones when that came out. I was a little bit too young to remember these circulating in the masses, but the Game Boy Color was my first ever console, so it does hold a very special place in my heart. A lot of Game Boy Color and Advance accessories were purple, and my first Game Boy Color was purple, or my only Game Boy Color. Up until, yeah, I sold that Game Boy Color to get an SP later on. So this case is hard plastic, and unfortunately I don't have anything in it. That's why I'm showing it first, because it's quite dull. I don't have anything in this case. Now I do have floating about somewhere a purple Game Boy Color. I can't find it at the moment, but it's on its own, floating around. I've seen it recently, but I don't know where it is. So as soon as I find that, that'll go in here. I'll include a couple of games, and that'll be great. The games appear to slot into this little plastic thing. It lifts up, which is really cool, and it allows you to slot the games in. You'd fit 4 games in there. Now, the only gripe with these kind of things that I have is you have all of these extra spaces, and these are designed for chargers, battery packs, magnifiers, lights, that kind of thing. They all lift up in their own little way, maybe storing earphones or whatever. I'm not sure if that was meant to come completely off or not, but I'll take a look at that later. But even though you'd buy a giant case like this, you still wouldn't have loads and loads of room for games, which I always found odd. But you could put various things in here, so it looks like a magnifier or whatever went there, and this was designed for Game Boy Color and Game Boy Pocket, so I assume it fits the both. So that's quite cool. As soon as I find my Game Boy Color, I'll slot it in here and include a few Game Boy Color games, because I know I've got a few spare Game Boy Color games knocking about, and that'll make a nice little bundle for someone. So that is the first thing I wanted to show you guys. Talking of Game Boy Color, next up I have this little case. This is a third-party little case, but definitely something that I would have been very happy to carry around when I had a Game Boy Color. I had a similar case to this, but it was bright blue and green, and it was a bit thicker, and it had 2 compartments. But it was similar to this. I prefer these softer cases over the hard ones. They're just a lot easier to carry around, a lot lighter, and I believe they were more popular back in the day, but the hard ones were cool. I also remember the sort of flight cased kind of design suitcases that you could get in Game UK for the Game Boys. They were amazing. So opening this up, you guys can see that I have an atomic purple Game Boy Color. Now, first off, my current Game Boy Color that I keep if I ever want to play any Game Boy Color games is atomic purple, but this is a different atomic purple one. And you can tell that this is the one that I have to sell because it has the proper battery cover. Mine has a battery cover that I bought off eBay, which does not have the little serial number label on it. Mistakenly, guys, people often call this a limited edition Game Boy Color. In fact, it isn't. Even though it does look limited edition, it really is not. It was part of the original colour lineup of the console, and it's really no more rare than the rest. So there it is, atomic purple Game Boy Color. It's a little beauty. We're not going to fire the Game Boy Color up in this video, we're going to fire one of the older Game Boys up. But over here, you can see there is a compartment for 2 games, but in this side I have a microfiber cleaning cloth. This actually came with it, so it keeps the screen nice and clean. And the screen is in very good condition on this Game Boy Color, very, very good. And also we have a game. This is Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle 4. Now, one thing that I will note, and this is true for the original Game Boy games as well, is the covers on these games are so appealing. They meant a lot back in the day to get the design of the label and the cover right for the game and the box art and everything. Because, of course, when you fired up a Game Boy game, it was just linear 2D, and it basically never really resembled anything to do with the actual game, with the actual theme, especially sort of Disney games and stuff like that. You know, the Game Boy Color was so basic, there was not a lot you could do. And the same with the original Game Boy, of course. But that is a nice little bundle, nice little carrying handle, so that'll be very cool. That's pretty much ready to sell, and I'm very, very pleased that I have this. So next I thought I'd show you guys basically the older brother to that little bundle, but the difference is this one actually comes in the Nintendo official carry case. I believe, anyway, I believe these are the actual Nintendo ones with the red Nintendo logo. These are very nice cases, nice padding, and I'll show you inside in a second because it is really nice. But one thing I forgot to show you on the other case is it does have a zipped compartment on the back, which is very handy. You could probably, I don't think you could cram more games in there, it's a little short, but you could definitely get a pair of earphones or something like that in there, which is definitely what I would have put in there. Maybe a cleaning cloth and a pair of earphones, so I could fit 2 games on the inside. But anyway, moving back to this, this is a lovely, lovely little case. As you can see, Nintendo logo on both sides, handle on the top, nice strap, really nice bit of kit. So it's got 2 zipped compartments. If we open up the first one, you can see that it houses 4 games. So we've got some classics in here. We've got Tetris, Super Mario Land, Pokemon Yellow in its bright yellow cartridge, of course, one of the most popular games. And you will actually see when I open up the second compartment, we have a bright yellow original Game Boy. Now, I originally thought these had something to do with Pokemon, but after research it looks like these are indeed something to do with something called the Play It Loud series, which was a release of all colour Game Boys, not Game Boy Colors, but original Game Boys with a coloured casing in 1995, which was, you know, pre-Game Boy Pocket and pre-Game Boy Color, of course. So that is pretty cool, and the only one you really see around here is the yellow one. The yellow one is the most common, so I'm not sure if the other colours were other countries only. I believe I've seen black ones in this country, but you can get see-through ones, and green and red and blue, and they look a lot better than the original Game Boy, which was that sort of off-white colour. But as you can see, I actually have the manuals for Tetris, Super Mario Land, and the original compact video game system Game Boy manual, which is really cool, sitting in the case there, and the fact that they fit in there is also quite cool. As you can see, very good quality Nintendo case. Comes with a little strap here to hold the Game Boy in, which is great, and of course we have the manual sitting there, all in a separate zipped compartment, and this particular case can hold 4 games, which is really cool, all in these little see-through compartments. And it looks as if you'd have space to store the games in their little plastic cases as well, because they were still very popular around this time. So yeah, there's those 4 games in there. A lovely, lovely little bundle to sell. Someone will absolutely love that. Even though the yellow Game Boys, like I said, are probably the most common Game Boy from the Play It Now series. Having said that, I do believe that even though it's not officially a Pokemon version of the Game Boy, I believe the yellow Play It Loud series Game Boy was bundled with Pokemon Yellow at some point. So was the Pokemon edition of the Game Boy Color. I know that for a fact, but I'm not sure of my facts there with the original Game Boy. I was a little too young in 1995 to know how these things are advertised and released. You know, I was pretty much Game Boy Advance kind of era. But I had a Game Boy Color to begin with. So, that is that. Moving on, guys, I have this massive box here, and I've probably got to zoom the camera out a little bit. So here we have this massive plastic case, and I don't know if it has anything to do with Game Boys. It does say Gearbox on it, but I mean that could mean anything. It looks kind of Game Boy-ish, but there's no compartments on the inside. Let me just carefully lean that back so I don't lean it on my monitor. And in here, rattling round, I have all sorts of things. So I have another yellow Game Boy. This one has a little bit of a squishy A button, which is kind of annoying, and I'm not sure how well that works. It feels very squishy, so that could really impact the value, which is a big shame. But none of these Game Boys have batteries. Oh, this one does have 3 batteries in it. Let's see if they've been leaking. Let's have a little look. I thought I'd checked them all. No, they haven't been leaking by the looks of it. Power Force batteries. It's kind of cool that they're white and yellow. They look pretty cool in there. I will sort that out later, guys, when it comes to testing all of these individually. I won't have time to put any of these on eBay today, but one thing about these older Game Boys, guys, is the battery covers can sometimes become a little problematic with this catch here. It's very popular to string an elastic band around the Game Boy itself. So I have one of these. I also have one of these accessories. These were very popular all the way up until the Game Boy Advance SP. These are basically combination light magnifiers. You can also get just magnifiers or just lights, but the combo ones were the most common ones, and I had one for my Game Boy Color. Considering I've got bad eyesight, Game Boys were pretty much very difficult for me. Depending on the game, certain games were fine. You know, Tetris, Super Mario, they were fine, but anything with more intricate screen design than that, you know, graphical design on screen, so lots of things on screen would confuse me, so these were very handy. This is basically, if I can clip it on, hang on a second, sits on the top of the Game Boy. I'm sure you've all seen these, and it provides a magnifier, and it also has 2 little lamps down below to light up the screen, which is very effective. It was effective for back in the day, but compared to backlit screens that we have these days, it still looks absolutely terrible. This would take its own batteries. I believe this does have batteries in it. It takes 2 AA's of its own. They tended to last a decent amount of time. They're not overly bright, of course, because if they were, then they'd shine and reflect back on the screen. I know you could get ones with dimmers on them, actually, but this one does not have a dimmer on it. And is it lighting up? No, it's not lighting up. The batteries are dead, but it has its own independent power switch on the side, and also you can still access the game slot and the power switch of the Game Boy. So that is a magnifier slash light for the original Game Boy. You could get them for the Color and the Pocket and all sorts as well. As well, in this case, we have a power plug, and I'm not sure if this has anything to do with the Game Boy. Let's see if it plugs in. Okay, so it does fit in the Game Boy, but it's a little rattly in there, so I'll probably give this one a miss. You know, it's kind of handy when you're at home to play them directly plugged into the wall, but it kind of, yeah, it's not really that desirable, I guess, these days. It is a third-party one, so I'm not too sure about that, guys. But it's in here. I'll leave it in here for now. We have loads and loads of instruction booklets for various games, which is really cool. Mario and Yoshi, Dr. Mario, all sorts in here. Golf. And I believe most of the games that I have manuals for, I actually have the games for as well, because if we get a load of the manuals out of the way, let's put them to one side. I have some kind of Game Boy cover thing. I don't know what that's for. More stuff. What do we have here? Donations needed. Clothing, accessories, books, CDs, DVDs, bric-a-brac. This is... oh, this is the original price from the charity shop. £4.50. This is cool. Got it in the charity shop. Bin that so I don't accidentally include it. And then we have a load of games, which is really cool. Some of them in their little bits of casing, some of them not. Most in good condition, but there's been a label ripped off of here. And it says Dies on it, so I assume he was called Di or David. You can see a load of games in here, so these will all come in handy. But of course, I probably won't be selling this Game Boy in this plastic case, because I believe someone probably just threw it in here for the hell of it, and it doesn't really belong in here. So I'll just pop all those down there, pop that there, and close it up. So that is quite a nice bundle, as you guys can see, but it definitely needs sorting out and testing and stuff, considering those batteries have been in there for a while. So I'll sort all that out soon. Moving on then to my 2 last little Game Boy bundles. Now, these are both very similar. Here we have these hard, very hard plastic, very old by the looks of it, Game Boy cases. And guys, I don't know who the hell would carry one of these round. I mean, you know, maybe keeping it in a camper van or a caravan or a boot of a car or something, but it's definitely not portable. You wouldn't see anyone wandering around school with one of these. So it's got a strap on it and it's got a carrying handle and it's just basically colossal. Let's open it up. It's also very old, brittle type plastic, so it's very creaky, but it feels strong enough. It does have a name label on it as well, Kerry Hughes, so judging by the hues it has come from Wales, which is cool. Folding that back and you can pretty much see a few cool things in here actually. First off, we have a Game Boy clipped in, and in these cases they're always clipped in quite firmly. Now this Game Boy isn't in brilliant condition. It's got a couple of marks and stuff on it and it's a little yellowed to the front, but it'll still work, of course. It's a Game Boy, they're very, very solid. This is an original colour Game Boy, so this is, you know, 89 and above Game Boy, which is really, really cool to have, but as you can see it's a little yellowed, a little sun damaged, which is a shame, but it probably works just fine. So that slots in there, and you've got to try and peel this back to get it in, but it does sit in there quite nicely. Coming over here is something very cool that I want to show off because everyone makes a big fuss about this in terms of modern technology. Let me spin it that way. Now this is, guys, a rechargeable, I believe. Let's see if I am right. Yeah, this is a rechargeable Game Boy battery. So what you'd do is you'd have this, right, on your belt pack or clip it onto somewhere or your Game Boy case or whatever. This is quite heavy. This is a battery, and you'd plug it in the bottom of your Game Boy and it would give it mains power, so you'd have much more extended battery life. The Game Boy would think it's attached to the mains, but it's not. It's attached to this big old battery, and as you can see it's got a figure of 8 connection on the bottom, so you'd attach it to some proper hefty juice to get a charge. But they improved these a lot over the years. I had one for my Game Boy Color, and that was it attached to the battery compartment, and it had a little cable going down, a little patch cable that plugged into the AC input at the bottom. So that is that, and very impressive for the time. Pretty old, I'd say, in the Game Boy lifespan, because of how big and bulky it is. They became a lot smaller than that. But when you bought these cases, they normally came with all of those kind of things. As you can see, it fits in there. So this was an ultimate kind of bundle. Now, I showed you guys the magnifier earlier. This is pretty much the same thing, but just the light. So I'm not too sure how this one clips on, actually. But it does cover the screen. I think it may be missing a part, because I have no idea how it clips on. But it is a light. It's got 2 little lamps in it. Or 1 little lamp, I'm not too sure. It's actually quite a nice light. I think it's like a halo light around there, so would have provided nice light. It's not a magnifier, but I'm really not sure how it clips on. It looks as if it does just sit on the top like that, guys, and makes a little halo, but I have no idea how it attaches. Or does it just rest on, or what? It can't just rest on. Or does it? Oh, hang on, I've managed to clip it on. There we go, guys, that's cool. It's not missing any components, it just clips on like that. Much less bulky than the magnifier, obviously still fairly bulky, but that would provide a nice little halo light around the screen, which is really cool. So, as you can probably tell, guys, these accessories were very popular, and the only question is now, how the hell do you get it off? I don't even understand how that attaches. It's got a little plastic ridge that goes into the seam of the Game Boy, so it almost pries your Game Boy apart, which is entertaining, but it works. And there we have it, sitting on the Game Boy, so that's cool. Underneath there, if I put the Game Boy back for now, snap it back into place, there we go. Underneath here you can see we have various compartments. It looks to be spare battery compartments down there, game compartments, blah blah blah, all sorts in there. Actually these are all game compartments in the lid here, I believe. All of these slot games in, so that is fairly awesome. You could fit a lot of games in here. Yeah, battery compartments, games compartments, more stuff down there. So I'm not sure what this is, not sure if it's complete. It doesn't look complete, but still a nice little bundle in there. Very, very cool stuff, but a little bulky to be called portable. Now, moving that down, we are moving on to my last little Game Boy bundle, and it really needs a wash. The outside really needs a wash, but this is one of my favourites because yes, it does come in one of these hard cases, but it is much smaller and it is much nicer, much more attractive, quite lightweight as well. So opening this up, guys, let's take a little look in here. Okay, this is cool. I love this. This is just ideal. We have in here a Game Boy that fits perfectly in this case, and you can just pull it out like that. And this Game Boy is in nice condition. Unfortunately, this screen is a little bit scratched up, but it isn't sun yellowed, whereas the other Game Boy has a nice condition screen, but it is sun yellowed. So you can't win them all, but the batteries feel nice, and the screen isn't, you know, scratched beyond belief. It's just a little scraped up. This is the Game Boy that we'll be testing, guys. I'll put some batteries in it. I'll stop the camera in a minute, put some batteries in it, and we'll give it a go. But let's pop that there for a second. And in this side, as you can see, you can perfectly fit Game Boy games in these little cases. And these plastic cases are very, very cool. I used to use them. I knew most of my friends didn't use them. They are a bit of a pain in the arse to open. You get used to them though, but yeah, I am actually struggling to open this. But I had colourful ones for my Game Boy Color that were made third party by Game, but these are the actual Nintendo ones. So as you can see, we've got Donkey Kong Land, we've got one of the best Game Boy games, Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins, and then we have the 2 Tetris games back here. So this is probably my favourite bundle just because it includes a load of classic games, brilliant games, and a lovely little case. So what we'll do actually, guys, is we'll take both of these and we'll take them out. I'll keep them to one side. Come on. There we go. Pop those in there for safekeeping. We will test out this Game Boy with Tetris and Super Mario Land 2, which will be absolutely awesome. Putting that case in there. Close. We'll get the Game Boy, that would help. Put the case to one side. I'll find some batteries, guys, and we'll give it a whirl, because I don't know if I've ever fired up a Game Boy on this channel before. Here we go. So guys, classic case of childhood memory has just been brought back. I never had one of these Game Boys, but I had a Game Boy Color. And even though this takes 4 batteries and the Game Boy Color took 2, Game Boy is always powered up. If the batteries were totally dead, if you just put one new battery in it on the Game Boy Color, it would power up with one dead battery and last quite a while. With these, it was the same story. I've taken those 2 old dead batteries out and put 2 new Panasonic batteries in there, and it has fired right up, which is awesome. So you could always do battery swapping tricks like that. Pretty similar with any electronics, but it was so much better with the Game Boy than it was with the Game Gear or anything. So let's fire up the Game Boy. Now these are incredibly hard to film, guys, and of course I'm going to have to try and see what I'm doing at the same time. So that's quite a decent screen for you guys. If I kind of put my head to the side and look in the side, I can just about see. Now, I never had one of these Game Boys. It would have been pointless for me to have one because of my, extreme visual impairment. I would have found it very difficult, and it would have, given me quite a bit of strain. So I'm quite lucky that I was able to get a Game Boy Color and then a Game Boy Advance SP, which was much easier again. But even like playing Game Boy Advance SP to me now is still a little bit less comfort than I would like. I've always been more of a home console gamer. But hopefully you can see what I'm doing there a little bit. It's very hard to film. This is classic Tetris, guys, as you know. Pretty much the game that launched the system into its absolutely phenomenal popularity. The fact that it was included with the Game Boy. Very, very good tactics from Nintendo there. Let's give Super Mario Land 2 a go. Just a really quick go. As you can see, you always know if it's not booted up properly by the Nintendo logo. Boom, Nintendo. Sorry guys, I'm not in the frame. Here we have it. Of course, these were the only Game Boys that were contrast adjustable. So that makes life quite interesting. But this is still such a brilliant game by today's standards. Let's go. Let's pick a random level. Brilliant music on this game, guys. Now I'm not going to be able to do anything. Ah, actually I'm in the wrong bit here. Hang on. My memory lets me down. See, go over here. Let's just go in here. This'll do. Let's see if you can see anything. Yeah, kind of, not really. So here we are, guys. Bearing in mind I can't see anything right now because I'm miles away from the screen and the light is shining right in it. But here we are. The original Game Boy. In all of its glory. So let's wait until I die by an enemy that I can't see. There we go. Didn't take long. So as you guys can hopefully tell, that works brilliantly, and that is such a nice little bundle to have. So everyone, just a really quick outro then. I wanted to show you all my Game Boy stuff because even though I haven't worked hard on this collection and there's nothing that impressive in here, it's still built up over the years and it is quite a lot of stuff, you know. In terms of raw consoles, you know, that I've shown you, I believe, 4 Game Boys or 5 Game Boys, and I know there's another Game Boy Color to come to put in that purple case. So that is really cool. And as you know, like I keep mentioning, I'm clearing out, selling my stuff. So getting rid of all this stuff is kind of essential. But I'll never be done with this because any good deal that I find, I will always pick it up just to give it a test, to clean and to sell it on. This case needs quite a big clean, but that has got to be this has got to be my favourite little bundle because this is in such a small little case and it's also the original Game Boy. It just needs a really good clean, as you can see. Anyway guys, that has been my very random but hopefully relatively exciting Game Boy video. I've enjoyed filming it. It's been a good laugh, and I haven't done Game Boy stuff in such a long time, so I'm actually feeling quite nostalgic in a way here, which is really, really cool. So huge thank you for watching, everyone. I know my gaming videos aren't my most popular videos anymore, which is odd because it used to be the other way around on this channel when I first started off, because I used to do so much gaming stuff. But I do appreciate the support from those people that do enjoy these videos. So massive thank you, everyone, and of course, as always, I will see you in tomorrow's video.